This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson.
Yes, hello, this is your host, Harry Wilkinson, and welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show. This is the show where we take a look at the days and weeks events, happenings in the world of politics, happenings in technology, in science, and we take a look at these things from a higher perspective. We take a step back. We remember the truth of who we are. It can often be, it can often be hard to remember that in the midst of our, day-to-day life. The hectic nature of what we do, and certainly with the technologies that we have today, it's easy to get bombarded and overwhelmed. And so I feel like it's very important just for health and sanity purposes to take that step back and realize that what we are creating in this world, all of these things that we spend a lot of time or we hear so much about interacting with via the new media or traditional media, whatever it is, these things are creations. They are illusions. They are not the truth of who and what we are. But they are telling a story that we are telling about ourselves, and they are providing us with a virtual space, if you will, in which to experience things and in which to reconnect ultimately with who we are. And when you remember that, at least for me, when I remember that, it's much more manageable, much less overwhelming, and much more healthful and easier to have a positive look, if you want to say positive, or just to understand that everything is as it should be. As hard as that can be to realize sometimes, everything is as it should be. So, in that spirit, in that vein, we'll take a look at some of the things that are going on. We're going to talk about Earth Day, and some of the activities that are going on in Earth Day. We're going to talk about the reactions to some of our governments or our new president's approaches towards things like climate change and science in general. They had a big gathering at the mall here in the Washington, D.C. area in support of science. And it's just interesting to me and a little amusing to me that people felt that science was so threatened that they needed to march on Washington. No, I get it. I get it. A lot of the approaches towards science that President Trump has initiated, including cuts to scientific research, cuts to the National Institute of Health, the NIH, are concerning to people, and they should be. But it's just kind of interesting, the idea that science could be under attack. At this point in time, science supports everything that we do in our function, so I don't see how it can be under attack. But I do see that, scientific evidence for things like climate change are among certain people in our government not being embraced, perhaps with the wholeheartedness that they should be. And that is a concern, for sure. This being Earth Day, or Earth Day weekend, we're concerned that the mounting evidence about the environmental risks of climate change seems to be being ignored. My take on it is this is a reaction. We are in a sort of polarized environment in this transition era that we're in, where, as I've said before, it's sort of a push me, pull you, one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. So I think we're in a reaction period now, where climate change had been being embraced and focused on, and now there's the pullback, and it will come back again. It will have to, because simply because of the environmental risks and dangers, and they are not going to be able to be ignored. So I don't have too many fears about that. I know it's frustrating to feel like all of the progress we may have been making in that area has been upended, and it sometimes feels like that. But I would say just know that it's part of the process. So, there's that. And, Earth Day has been with us since 1970. And over the years has become more and more a part of our celebrations in the spring. And there's more and more awareness about Earth Day and the environment. But it's interesting to me that there's still not a lot of you would think after 47 years of Earth Days that there would be more sort of focus or media coverage or something along those lines. I've noticed in schools there certainly is more focus on Earth Day. When I was a kid, the whole Earth Day idea was just starting, and it wasn't particularly embraced by the schools, mostly because I don't think they'd had time to really, digest the idea of Earth Day, and that could be something that would be an educational foundation that you could teach kids about healthy stewardship of the environment and so forth and so on. We were only just starting to find out about the threats to the environment when I was in elementary school. So there was very little focus on Earth Day back then. Now, of course, there's a great deal of focus because there's so much more information available. Kids are now much more aware that, our species and animals are endangered in many circumstances. And they're learning much more about what animals do and what ecosystems are than certainly my generation learned at that same age. So it's encouraging that awareness is being taught in schools, and it's being passed down through the generations. And I think it's still going to take a while. I mean, I think really now, I think it's probably the millennials and maybe a little bit of the later Gen Xers are really the first generation to have this focus on the environment and the dangers that we face, and that we're losing species and animals, daily. And they are just coming into their own. They're just, entering the world as far as their ability to be part of politics or be part of constructive change in the workforce and things like that. So I think that it's just going to be undeniable within a few years, I would say, certainly within the next generation. It's just going to be undeniable. It would be unthinkable to have the kind of pullbacks from environmental stewardship that we're having now. But, again, it takes time for the generations to, evolve and recede and all of that. So, some interesting thoughts for Earth Day. Now, we've been talking about mystical experiences for the past 2 episodes, talking about mystical experiences. So I want to kind of wrap that up a little bit, because we want to focus on spring wellness. This is the time of year where we have allergies and spring colds and things like that. And just want to focus on ways to, alleviate some of those things. Spring brings a lot of activity, and with that activity can also come a lot of stress. So we're going to talk about de-stressing, as well. But to talk about the mystical experiences that we've been discussing, we've talked about the mystical experiences that just sort of happen, and some that are sought. Now, some actively seek to have these experiences, and others, it just happens to them. But you can open yourself up to having them. There's no guarantee of how they will occur in your life, but you can open them up through things like meditation, music, breath control, yoga, meditation. These are things that calm the mental state down and allow you to be open to what might be considered mystical experiences. Now, also, there's traditions in indigenous cultures and Native American cultures of controlled use of certain psychedelic drugs that allow you to, or allow your consciousness to be opened. Those are also valid ways of accessing that sort of vision. Now, some people find that using drugs to sort of self-induce mystical experiences isn't quite of much value, since you might not be able to have be confident in the legitimacy of the experience, whereas you might begin to feel like, well, you were just having a psychedelic moment. So some people write those off. I don't think that's necessarily